6 weeks after Jennifer took the house, the car, and both children, James Mitchell spent his last $300 on groceries. Not a lawyer, not a plane ticket. Groceries. 2 cast iron pots, a folding table, a corner of Main Street in Nashville, Tennessee, where the morning shift workers walked past without slowing down. Nashville early. The kind of humid cold that wraps around you before you notice it. He opened the recipe notebook to the first page. His grandfather's handwriting. Blue ink. Careful, deliberate letters of a man who had written in notebooks his entire life. A note in the margin said, "Don't rush. Let the fire do its work." He lit the burner. Across the city, in the house that used to be his, the paperwork was already filed. The accounts already moved. The attorney already paid. 14 months of careful, invisible work. And Jennifer had left him with $300 because her lawyer said it wasn't worth the paperwork. She was wrong about that. 11 months later, a camera crew followed him to work. She watched it on television. James Mitchell grew up in Memphis before moving to Nashville. His grandfather, Grandpa Joe, Joseph Mitchell, born 1941, lived in the same house on Beale Street, in the same kitchen he had cooked in for 40 years. Before James left Memphis, Grandpa Joe pressed something into his hands. A notebook, dark green cloth cover, worn soft from decades of handling. Every page written in blue ink in Grandpa Joe's careful script. 212 pages. 40 years of cooking recorded one dish at a time. Smothered chicken, gumbo, fried catfish, biscuits and gravy, slow-cooked barbecue. Notes in the margins. Small adjustments written in a slightly different shade of blue. The kind of notes a man writes when he is talking to himself at 5 in the morning and does not expect anyone else to read them. At the bottom of the smothered chicken recipe, underlined once, in slightly larger letters. This is the dish for when someone carries a grief they don't know how to name. Grandpa Joe had not been a restaurant chef. He was a retired construction foreman who had spent 30 years building houses across Tennessee and Mississippi. But the kitchen was his real architecture. Every Sunday morning, from before James could remember anything clearly, that kitchen on Beale Street became the neighborhood's gathering place. Grandpa Joe cooked for anyone who showed up. He did not ask questions. He did not take money. He did not turn a single person away from that front door on a Sunday morning, no matter what trouble was written across their face. He put food on the table and let the morning do the rest. James had stood beside Grandpa Joe in that kitchen from the time he could reach the counter on a stool. 5 years old, holding a wooden spoon too heavy for his small hand, stirring a pot he couldn't see into properly. Grandpa Joe didn't give him simple tasks to keep him occupied. He gave him real ones. Stir this, taste that, tell me what's missing. By the time James was 10, he could make the smothered chicken from memory. By 12, he was running the full Sunday spread, while Grandpa Joe sat on a wooden chair by the window and watched without speaking, nodding occasionally, saying nothing unless James was about to make a genuine mistake. But cooking was not the only thing Grandpa Joe taught him. There was something else, something that had nothing to do with spice levels or flame height or timing. Something James heard so many times across so many Sunday mornings that by the time he was a grown man, he could not separate it from anything else he understood to be simply and permanently true. Feed people, look them in the eye. That is how you tell someone they matter. James heard that sentence at age 7. He heard it at 17. He heard it the last morning he spent in that kitchen on Beale Street before he moved to Nashville, the green notebook riding in his carry-on bag because he would not let it go in checked luggage. He opened the notebook often in the first years in Nashville. Cooked his way through the first third of it on weekends when he wasn't working double shifts at the soul food restaurant on Broadway. Then he opened it less. Then not at all, after Grandpa Joe's health began failing, and the phone calls from Memphis started carrying a different weight. Joseph Mitchell died on a Wednesday morning in March, 3 years before this story begins. 81 years old, in the house on Beale Street, in the bed 12 feet from the kitchen where he had fed half a neighborhood for 4 decades. James flew to Memphis for the funeral. He sat in that kitchen for 2 hours after everyone else had gone. He did not cook. He did not open the notebook. He sat at the kitchen table and looked at the stove and the counter and the wooden spoon still hanging from the hook by the window, and he tried to understand how a room could hold so much of a person after that person was gone. He flew back to Nashville. James met Jennifer Carter when he was 27. She was 30, a corporate finance manager at a firm in downtown Nashville. She wore pressed blazers and remembered specific things people said in passing conversations, then brought them back 3 weeks later with precision. She had a plan for everything. That was what James noticed first and found genuinely admirable. Jennifer always had a plan. They married when James was 29. Small ceremony, 41 guests. James cooked the entire reception dinner himself because he wanted to, and because Jennifer said it would feel more meaningful than catering. She was right about that. The food was extraordinary. Her colleagues talked about it for weeks. They told Jennifer her husband should open a restaurant. She laughed and changed the subject. James didn't notice that at the time. They had 2 children. Zach, born when James was 30. Emma, born when James was 33. James left the restaurant job when Zach was born. Jennifer suggested it practically, without sentiment. The math was simple. Childcare in Nashville cost more per month than James's take-home pay. Jennifer earned enough for both of them. It made sense for James to stay home, raise the children, manage the house, and cook. He agreed. 2 years after Zach was born, Jennifer suggested taking over the finances entirely. "You focus on the kids. I'll handle the accounts." James agreed. She worked with numbers every day. She understood mortgage structures and investment instruments in ways James had never needed to understand. There was no reason not to trust the woman he had built a family beside. 3 years after that, Jennifer said the house should go into her name alone for a mortgage refinancing. Just a technicality. "The loan terms are better with a single primary borrower, and my credit profile is cleaner for this instrument." James signed the papers. He was in the kitchen when he signed them. He remembered the pen in his hand. He did not remember anyone explaining what he was actually signing away. That was how it worked. Each step had a reason. Each reason was practical. Each signature arrived in the middle of a normal evening, while James was doing something ordinary, cooking dinner, helping Zach with homework, sitting at the kitchen table folding laundry while something simmered on the stove. The steps were small. The gaps between them were months, sometimes years. You don't feel the ground shifting when it moves that slowly. You just wake up one morning and find yourself standing somewhere entirely different from where you thought you were, with no documentation to prove you were ever anywhere else. Jennifer was exceptional at one specific thing above all others. She controlled the image. In front of family, the attentive and supportive wife. In front of colleagues, the provider, the professional, the woman who had built something stable. In front of the children, the mother who planned family trips and attended every school event. James cooked for every dinner party Jennifer hosted. He made the food her colleagues talked about for weeks afterward. He set the table, refilled the glasses, cleaned up after. After the last guest left, Jennifer introduced him as "my husband," and the food appeared on the table as though it had arrived independently of any human effort. She never said James made this. She said, "We put together something simple," and moved the conversation elsewhere. Every professional relationship Jennifer had built in Nashville ran through a meal James cooked. Every client dinner. Every holiday gathering. Every casual Sunday when she invited colleagues over for what she called a relaxed afternoon that required James to spend 6 hours in the kitchen. His hands built the foundation of her professional life. His name was on none of it. Not on the bank accounts, not on the mortgage, not on the investment portfolio, not on the car title, not on the credit cards. 12 years of cooking and raising 2 children and hosting every gathering and managing every household detail, and his name did not appear on a single document that carried legal weight. He didn't notice. That is the true and terrible thing about control applied slowly over a long period of time. You trust the person applying it. And so you sign the papers and agree to the arrangements and believe in the logic of each individual step, right up until the morning you find yourself with nothing in your name and no paper trail to argue otherwise. Jennifer began planning the divorce 14 months before James knew anything was wrong. She hired Robert Chambers, 49 years old, family asset attorney, office on Broadway in downtown Nashville. Chambers had practiced family law for 23 years and had a reputation in Nashville's legal community for treating divorce cases the way an engineer approaches a structural problem. Not with emotion, with architecture. Where are the load-bearing points? Where are the weak joints? How do you build something that holds under maximum pressure? Over 14 months, he moved methodically. The house refinanced into Jennifer's name alone. The joint savings account, $38,000, transferred to an individual account at a different branch. The investment account restructured into a trust naming Jennifer as sole beneficiary. The car title updated to her name only. The credit cards in James's name quietly closed. Fraud alert, Jennifer explained. Replacements came in her name alone. 14 months, 7 documents. Every one of them signed or processed, while James cooked dinner and helped Zach with science projects and drove Emma to her Saturday art class and trusted without reservation the woman he had believed in for 12 years. The papers arrived on a Thursday afternoon in April. James was in the kitchen. He had just turned off the stove. He was standing at the counter with a dish towel in his hands when he heard Jennifer come through the front door. She set the envelope on the counter between the salt and the bowl of fruit. She was still in her work clothes, bag still over her shoulder, her face composed in the way it always was when she had already processed something and was simply waiting for the other person to catch up. He read all 27 pages, standing at the counter. He did not sit down. He read about the dissolution of the marriage, the custody petition, the asset distribution, which was precisely what it sounds like when all assets have been legally transferred into a single name before the filing date. He read about the financial records that would be submitted to the court, records showing Jennifer as the sole provider, James as a dependent with no independent income, no individual bank accounts, no employment history for 10 years, no assets in his own name. He read all 27 pages. Then he set them on the counter exactly where the envelope had been. He looked at Jennifer. She was standing in the doorway, watching him read. Neither of them spoke. The silence in that kitchen was the kind that comes after something has already been decided, and both people in the room know it. The custody hearing took 6 weeks. Chambers's team moved fast because they had been moving for 14 months already. He presented financial records showing Jennifer as the sole provider across 12 years. The mortgage in her name, the bank accounts in her name, 2 children who needed stability, a mother with a salary of $147,000 a year, and a house with a yard. He presented James as the absence of all of that. The judge granted Jennifer temporary primary custody of Zach and Emma, pending completion of divorce proceedings. Temporary, the word didn't feel temporary to James. It felt like something closing, not a door, something heavier. Something that doesn't open again from the outside. He packed 1 suitcase that Friday morning. His clothes. The green notebook from the shelf above the microwave. The photograph tucked inside the front cover. Grandpa Joe standing in front of the kitchen on Beale Street, 1987. 66 years old, white apron. Hands dusty with flour. Smiling the way he always smiled in that photograph, like a man who understood something nobody else had quite figured out yet. There was $300 left in an old checking account that neither Jennifer nor Robert Chambers had located. The account had been opened in the first year of the marriage under the name of James's great-uncle, Uncle Ray, with James listed as a secondary holder. Ray had passed away 4 years earlier, and the account had never been formally closed. On the bank system, it displayed under R. Mitchell/J. Mitchell, not James Mitchell alone. Chambers had run his financial search on James Mitchell, and the account hadn't surfaced. The balance was $300. Even if it had surfaced, Chambers's assessment would have been the same, not a material asset, not worth the paperwork. $300. David Thompson pulled up at 10 in the morning. Black sedan, engine running. David was 43. A respiratory therapist at Vanderbilt Medical Center, working overnight shifts 4 nights a week. He and James had known each other for 13 years. Since James's first year in the city, back when they were both in the same apartment complex, and James used to leave food outside David's door on nights David came home from double shifts too exhausted to cook. David didn't get out of the car. He didn't need to. James came down the front steps with the suitcase, put it in the back seat, got in, and closed the door. David pulled away from the curb. James didn't look back at the house. He looked at the green notebook on his lap. No house, no car, no children beside him. No credit, no employment history, no account with his name on it. No paper trail proving that 12 years of his life had been real and had mattered and had built something worth taking. She took the house. She took the car. She took the children. She took 12 years of his hands in that kitchen and erased them from every document that existed. She left him with $300 and a recipe notebook. She thought she'd left him with nothing. David's apartment was in South Nashville. 2 bedrooms, a kitchen that smelled like coffee brewed the previous morning, a living room with a gray couch, and a window looking out over the parking lot. James slept on the couch. Blanket from the hall closet, pillow from the spare room, the $300 in an envelope inside his bag on the floor. The first 3 days, James didn't leave the apartment. He didn't eat much. He sat by the window and watched the parking lot and the street and thought about Zach's voicemail. His son asking when his dad was coming back. Zach saying Emma kept asking too. He put the phone face down on the cushion. 3 days of nothing. 3 days of sitting and trying to work out what the sequence was supposed to be from here. No employment history for a decade. No credit score worth mentioning. No professional references that weren't 12 years old. No assets. No savings. No plan. The 4th night, James couldn't sleep. David was at work. The apartment was dark and quiet. James lay on the couch staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out what the next move was supposed to be. Nothing came. He sat up. He reached into the bag beside the couch and pulled out the green notebook. He held it without opening it. The cloth cover was exactly as he remembered, worn and specific in the way objects become specific when they have been touched by the same hands for a very long time. He opened it. The photograph slid out of the front cover and landed on his lap. Grandpa Joe, 1987. The same smile. The expression of someone who has worked out something essential and is at peace about it without being smug about it. James held the photograph and sat there without moving for a long time. Then he turned to the first page. Grandpa Joe's handwriting. Blue ink. Letters sloping in a way that was particular to that hand. The smothered chicken recipe. And in the margin, in slightly smaller script, "Don't rush the stock. The fire inside is everything." He turned the page. Fried catfish. Beside the measurements. Lemon at the end, always at the end. He turned another page. Gumbo. At the bottom, underlined once. This is the dish for when someone carries a grief they don't know how to name. Every page had a note. Every note sounded like Grandpa Joe standing next to him in that dark apartment and talking to him the way Grandpa Joe had always talked. Not loudly, not dramatically, just steady and certain and present. The way some people are present, even in rooms they haven't been in for years. James closed the notebook. He held it against his chest for a while, then he got up. He went to the kitchen. David came home at 7:15 in the morning. The burners were on. The apartment smelled like slow-cooked bone broth, spices blooming in oil, and the warm, specific current of a kitchen that had been working for hours. Not the generic smell of food. Something more specific. A kitchen and a family and a particular way of understanding why cooking matters at all. David stood in the doorway in his scrubs, work bag still on his shoulder, and looked at James standing at the stove. Neither of them said anything for a moment. James spoke first. "I need somewhere to sell this." David set his bag down. "I know a Saturday market." James divided the $300 on the kitchen table that afternoon. $85 for a food handler's permit and a temporary vendor license. $140 for ingredients. $40 for containers, foiled trays, plastic forks, paper napkins. $35 left as a buffer. He took the bus to the health department office on a Tuesday morning, stood in line for 2 hours, paid the $85, received a card, a permit number, and a 2-sided sheet listing what he was and was not permitted to do under Tennessee food safety regulations. He read it twice on the bus home. He bought ingredients at the grocery store: bone-in beef for gumbo, a 10-pound bag of rice, whole spices, cooking oil, foil trays from the restaurant supply store 2 blocks away. He carried everything back on the bus. He cooked Thursday night in David's kitchen, preparing what he could in advance. He worked from the green notebook, open on the counter to the pages he knew best. Smothered chicken, page 1. Fried catfish, page 12. He worked slowly and without rushing, because rushing a dish before it was ready produced a dish that tasted like a rush. And Grandpa Joe had never rushed a dish in his life. Saturday morning, 5:30. James loaded 2 large pots and a folding table borrowed from the First Baptist Church, David's church, where James had attended twice in the past year, onto the bus. 9 stops to the South Nashville Community Market. He set up at the far end of the vendor row, between a woman selling handmade crafts and a man selling custom wooden items. The other vendors had branded canopies and printed tablecloths and credit card readers, and the full infrastructure of small business ownership that James had never built and didn't currently have. James had a folding table, 2 pots, 40 foil containers, and a piece of cardboard cut flat and written on in black marker with his prices and what he was serving. 6 in the morning to 9 in the morning, he sold 4 containers. People walked past. Some slowed, some looked at the handwritten cardboard and kept walking. James stood behind the table and didn't call out to anyone. He didn't wave people over or pitch his food. He stood there and waited and trusted what was in those containers. The food doesn't need to be loud. It needs to be good. That was Grandpa Joe's understanding, and James had inherited it completely. At 11:40, a woman stopped, somewhere in her mid-50s. Nice coat. A Sunday church quality to how she carried herself, even though it was a Saturday. She looked at the cardboard. She looked at James. She bought 1 container, opened it right there at the table, and stood in the November morning air and ate. She didn't say anything for close to a minute. Then she looked at James with an expression he recognized. The expression of someone who has just tasted something that matches a very old memory precisely. Her voice was quiet and certain. "This smells like my grandmother's kitchen." She bought 3 more containers, asked James his name, asked if he'd be here next Saturday. He told her yes. By 2 in the afternoon, James had sold 19 containers at $5 each. $95 minus the $48 he'd spent on ingredients and supplies. $47 on the bus ride back. $47, not enough for rent, not enough for a deposit anywhere, not enough for anything except ingredients for next Saturday. But a woman had come back for more, and she had said it smelled like her grandmother's kitchen. That was the only number that mattered. Not $47 on the left side of the ledger, but one woman who had recognized something true in a foil container on a folding table on a Saturday morning in November. James Mitchell understood, standing on that bus with the empty pots at his feet, that this was the thing you built from, not capital, not infrastructure, not a business plan, a person who came back. Week 2, 29 containers. Week 3, 36. Week 4, 40 containers sold out before 1 in the afternoon. The numbers didn't jump. They climbed the way a good fire builds slowly, without drama, adding heat in a consistent. Then a problem appeared. James was cooking in David's kitchen. Under Tennessee cottage food regulations, certain home kitchen items could be sold legally: baked goods, some preserves, shelf-stable products. But prepared meals with meat and rice and fresh ingredients, sold at public markets, required a licensed commercial kitchen. Inspected, certified. James had been selling for 4 weeks. He had been in violation for 4 weeks without knowing it. He found out at the public library on a Wednesday afternoon. No laptop of his own, no internet at the apartment. He sat at a library computer for 3 hours and read the Tennessee Health Service's food service regulations line by line. Then he searched for licensed shared-use commercial kitchen facilities in Nashville. $15 to $25 an hour. He did the math on the back of a grocery receipt. 4 hours of cooking per week at $15 an hour was $60. He would need to sell at least 25 containers just to cover the kitchen rental before ingredients and bus fare and supplies. A food truck would solve everything. Cook and sell from the same vehicle. Go where the customers were. He searched for used food trucks. $18,000 to $40,000 for something that ran. He closed that tab. He didn't have $18,000. He had $47 a week and a folding table. So he registered for 3 markets instead of 1. He started asking David about commercial kitchen options. David mentioned First Baptist Church. Pastor Williams had been running the church for 19 years. The building had a certified commercial kitchen in the lower level that was rented to small vendors on a sliding scale. $15 an hour for first-time renters, available Sunday through Tuesday mornings. James called the church office on a Thursday and booked his first session for the following Sunday. The first Sunday, he arrived at 4 a.m, let himself in with the code the church administrator had given him, and stood in the kitchen looking at the commercial range and the prep counter and the walk-in refrigerator. He thought about Grandpa Joe's kitchen on Beale Street. Never anything as official as this. Never anything certified or inspected. Just a gas stove and a steel counter and a front door that stayed open on warm mornings. He opened the green notebook on the prep counter. He started cooking. Pastor Williams had been watching James for 5 weeks before he said anything directly. 62 years old. He had run First Baptist since he was 43, and he had never in 19 years confused hard work with character. He knew every person who had rented that lower-level kitchen by how they left the space. James's kitchen smelled like work. The pastor came downstairs during James's 4th session and stood in the doorway for 10 minutes without speaking, watching James break down chicken with the speed and economy of someone who had been doing this his whole life. Then he came down again at the end of that session, after James had cleaned the kitchen to a standard the pastor hadn't seen from a renter before. He told James to sit. His voice was direct, without performance. I have been smelling your kitchen for 5 weeks. You arrive before the sun, and you clean this space better than most people clean their own homes. He looked at James steadily. What are you building, and who are you building it for? James told him. Short sentences. No self-pity. He told him about the divorce and the papers and the custody arrangement and the $300 and the markets and the bus rides. He told him about Grandpa Joe and the green notebook. Pastor Williams listened to all of it. Then he told James something back. His wife, Martha, had passed away 8 years ago, 57 years old. Sudden cardiac arrest on a Monday morning. Martha had been a caterer for community events, weddings, baby showers, church gatherings for 20 years. She had owned a food truck, white with green lettering, bought second-hand in 2009. Parked in the church lot every Sunday morning. Barbecue, gumbo, banana pudding, $7 a plate. The line went around the building. When Martha passed, the pastor couldn't bring himself to sell it. He covered it with a tarp and left it in the back lot. That had been 8 years ago. Come with me, he said. He walked James through the church's back entrance to the lot. He pulled the tarp back. Faded white paint cracked in long strips. Flat tires on the passenger side. Every window covered in dust. A dent in the rear bumper from a parking lot accident Martha had never gotten around to fixing. James walked to the side door and pulled it open. It stuck, then gave with the sound of metal that hadn't moved in years. He stepped inside. 2 gas burners intact. A prep counter along the interior wall. A small refrigerator beneath it that would need work. A service window on the passenger side with a metal shutter stuck halfway open. He stood inside the truck for a long moment. He put both hands on the prep counter and looked at the burners and the window and the space where the containers would be passed out and the people outside would receive them. He could see it. The pastor's voice came from outside. I'm not giving this to you. Martha built this and I won't give it away. But I'll rent it to you for $100 a month. Fix it yourself. If it runs and your business holds for 6 months, I'll sell it to you at what Martha paid for it in 2009. $4,200. James stepped back out onto... Brother Mike was 51, a mechanic and a member of First Baptist for 17 years. He looked at the engine on a Saturday morning and told James the fuel pump was gone, the battery was dead, and the alternator was corroded beyond salvaging. Parts would run around $320. He would do the labor for free, because the pastor had asked, and because Mike believed that a man willing to haul pots onto a city bus before sunrise deserved a truck that started. Sister Sarah was 38, worked at an auto body shop, and offered to sand and repaint the exterior in exchange for 2 months of meals once the truck was running. James agreed. The parts cost $318. James paid from 5 weeks of market earnings. Mike worked 3 consecutive Saturdays. Sarah came in the evenings after her regular shifts, working under the lot's exterior lights. 3 weeks from the first Saturday, Mike opened the hood to the afternoon light. The engine turned over for the first time in 8 years. New tires, reconnected gas line, a replacement compressor for the refrigeration unit, ordered and installed on the 4th Saturday. Sarah painted the exterior in deep forest green that dried to the color of the original cloth cover of the notebook. Then she handed James the gold paint and stepped back. He cut the letters from cardboard and taped them to the panel one at a time. Painted over them slowly, pulling the stencil away while the paint was still wet. The letters dried bold and permanent against the green. Grandpa's table. His grandfather's name on a truck that ran, in a gravel lot behind a church in South Nashville. James stood in front of it for a few minutes after the last coat dried. He reached into his jacket and took out the photograph. Grandpa Joe, 1987. White apron, flour-dusted hands. That same expression. The one that looked like someone who had worked out something essential and was entirely at peace about it. James went inside the truck. He taped the photograph to the wall beside the service window, where he would see it every time he looked up from the prep counter. Then he turned on both burners, the flame caught even and clean. He put his hands on the counter. The first morning Grandpa's table operated as a real business. James arrived at 5:30 and sat in the cab for 9 minutes before he turned on the burners. He looked at Grandpa Joe's photograph on the wall beside the service window. He thought about a Sunday morning on Beale Street when he was 11 years old, and Grandpa Joe had let him run the full spread alone for the first time. James had burned the first batch of biscuits and oversalted the gumbo, and Grandpa Joe had eaten both without mentioning either and said only, "The fried catfish was perfect. Start there next time and work outward from what's right." James turned on the burners at 5:41. He was parked on a main street in the wholesale corridor, west of downtown. He had scouted the location the week before, standing on the sidewalk at lunchtime and counting foot traffic for 40 minutes. Warehouse workers heading to parking lots. Truck drivers coming off loading docks. Construction crews from the site 3 blocks north, walking to a taco cart on the corner that ran out of food every day before noon. He opened the service window at 11:30. The first customer arrived at 11:44, a construction foreman named Mike, which James took as either coincidence or the universe being deliberate. 54 years old, a man everyone on the crew called Big Mike, with the unhurried manner of someone who has long since stopped performing patience and simply has it. He looked at the handwritten menu board and said, "Smothered chicken, extra biscuits, how much?" $8, Big Mike paid. He took his container to the wall along the warehouse lot and sat on it and ate without talking. When he finished, he looked back at the truck for a long moment. Then he went to work. He came back the next day at 11:45. Same order, extra biscuits. Day 3, he brought 2 men from his crew. Day 4, he brought 4. By the end of the second week, Big Mike was arriving with 7 construction workers from the site 3 blocks north, all of whom had apparently been surviving on gas station food for months because a proper meal required a 20-minute drive they didn't have. They had 8 minutes. 8 minutes was enough for James. Week 1 on the truck, 31 plates. Revenue after ingredient cost, $93, not enough for rent, but enough to keep the window open, which was exactly enough. James tracked every dollar in a composition notebook bought at a drugstore. Revenue on the left page, costs on the right, notes at the bottom in smaller writing. Observations about what moved and what didn't. Smothered chicken sells out first on Fridays. Make more Thursday night for next day. Catfish moves slower midweek, pick up Thursday. And on a Tuesday in the third week, circled twice, add banana pudding. They're asking. He started the banana pudding. The following Monday, page 91 of Grandpa Joe's notebook, in a section Grandpa Joe had simply titled Sweets, as though no further specification was required. The banana pudding sold out by noon on the first day. By the end of the first month, James was selling 42 plates a day at $8 each, $336 in daily gross revenue. Cost per plate running $3.20 with ingredients purchased in bulk from the wholesale supplier. The margin was real. Not comfortable, not yet, but real and moving in the right direction. Month 2, he added a second location. Downtown Nashville, 5 in the evening to 8, the afterwork corridor. Office workers in dress clothes heading for parking garages. Hospital staff coming off shift at Vanderbilt Medical Center a few blocks east. The evening trade pushed daily revenue after costs to $160 on a solid day. Month 3, his phone started ringing. Not investors, not press, just customers who had gotten the number off the side of the truck, calling to ask where he was parked on a given day. You on Main Street tomorrow? Coming downtown this week. David set up the Facebook page on a Sunday afternoon while James prepped for Monday. Just his phone as a camera. A photograph of the truck with the service window open. The name Grandpa's Table. The menu in the first post. Daily location updates going forward. 800 followers within 2 weeks. 3,000 within a month. People sharing posts, tagging friends, photographing their containers. Best Southern food in Nashville, no question. And this tastes like something my grandma would have made on Sunday morning. And I drove from Franklin for this. And I'm going back Thursday. $200 a day consistent. 6 days a week. The custody arrangement allowed James 2 afternoon visits per week and every other weekend. He brought food to every single visit. Packed in foil containers the same way he packed orders for customers. Sealed with tape so nothing spilled. Carried in a cloth bag over his shoulder on the bus to the house. He handed the bag to Zach at the door because James was not permitted inside the house that used to be his. He sat on the porch steps, and the children came out and they ate together in the open air. Emma said the same thing every time, with the certainty of someone making a statement of fact rather than offering a compliment. Daddy, this is the best food in the world. Zach ate with focus and didn't volunteer much. But one afternoon between bites, he spoke in the low and careful voice of a 12-year-old who had been thinking about how to phrase something for a while. Mom asked where the truck is parked. James looked at his son. What did you tell her? Zach considered the container in his hands. I told her the food is good. That was the answer of a boy who had more loyalty and more sense than the adults in his life deserved right then. James filed the motion for joint custody of Zach and Emma. A food writer named Rachel Green came to the location on a Wednesday, stood in line for 18 minutes, and wrote a 600-word piece that ran in the Nashville Tennessean food section on Thursday morning. James read it on his phone during the evening shift. One sentence about the smothered chicken. It tastes as though it was made specifically for you, on a day when you needed it most. Followers went from 3,000 to 12,000 within a week. Then a producer named Lisa Martinez from a local Nashville News affiliate approached the truck on a Monday afternoon. She had been a customer first, twice, before she introduced herself as a journalist. She was working on a series about small business owners in Nashville who had rebuilt from nothing. She asked if she could follow James for 3 days with a camera crew. He said yes. What happened next was not something James anticipated. It was something Jennifer caused. She had been monitoring closely. Through her attorney, through sources James didn't yet know about, she had been building a picture of what he was doing and how large it was getting. When she learned about the news segment, she called Robert Chambers. Chambers drafted a cease and desist letter to the news affiliate. It stated that any broadcast content referencing Jennifer Carter or the details of the Carter-Mitchell divorce proceedings would be considered defamatory and would result in immediate legal action. The word immediate appeared 4 times. The executive producer at Lisa's station was a man named Tom Bradley, who had been producing local news for 21 years and had a well-developed contempt for legal letters sent to chill coverage. He read Robert Chambers' letter twice, set it on his desk, called Lisa into his office, slid the letter across. She read it. She looked up. The segment was going to be 2 minutes, Tom said. A food truck story, end of the 6 o'clock. He leaned back. Why is a family asset attorney sending cease and desist letters to a local news station about a story on a food truck? Lisa didn't answer immediately. That's the story, Tom said. That's the real story. A woman who spent 14 months legally restructuring assets before filing for divorce, leaving her husband with no legal claim to anything they built together. Now using an attorney to prevent local news from covering what he built with the $300 she left him. He picked up the letter and looked at it again. This is a power story, a control story, 8 minutes prime time, not 2 minutes at the end of the 6. He set the letter down. Tell him we're expanding. I want 3 days of footage. Jennifer Carter had sent a legal letter to stop a story about a food truck. What she received instead was a story about herself. Lisa Martinez and a 2-person crew arrived at the church kitchen at 4:15 in the morning. James was already there, burners on, the green notebook open on the prep counter to page 1. Smothered chicken. The same page he'd been working from on Sunday mornings for 3 months. Lisa had told him what she wanted. No performance. No explaining anything to the lens. No acknowledgement of the camera. Just cook the way you cook. James cooked the way he cooked. He didn't glance at the camera. He measured and tasted and adjusted and moved through the kitchen with the same economy he'd had since childhood. The motion of someone who learned this work young enough that it became part of how he occupied space, rather than something he did separately from himself. The crew filmed the green notebook open on the counter. The handwriting, the margin notes. They filmed James's hands on the prep counter. They filmed the moment he tasted from a wooden spoon, tilted his head slightly, reached for the salt without looking. Between the lunch and evening shifts, James sat on the prep stool inside the truck with his hands in his lap, and Lisa asked questions from outside the service window. He told her he started with $300 and a folding table, and a recipe notebook his grandfather gave him when he left Memphis 16 years ago. He didn't say Jennifer's name. He didn't describe the divorce or what had been taken or the legal architecture of how the taking had been done. His voice was level when the words came. I lost everything I thought I had. Then I found everything I actually needed. The camera moved to the green notebook on the prep counter. The letters in blue ink. The margin notes. The photograph on the wall beside the service window. Grandpa Joe, 1987, taped there on the day the truck first ran, present every day since. Lisa interviewed 3 customers. Big Mike looked directly into the lens with his unhurried certainty. This man put soul into the food. You can taste the difference between food made because someone had to and food made because someone wanted to. The woman in the nice coat, the one from the very first Saturday at the market, who came back every week, looked at the camera with the composure of someone who has already said the true thing once and is entirely comfortable saying it again. This food reminds me of home. I don't know how he does it, but it's real. The segment aired on a Thursday evening. Prime time, 8 minutes. Title card over an opening shot of the truck in morning light. Grandpa's table, 1 man, $300, and a recipe notebook. James watched it from the studio apartment. He sat on the floor with his back against the bed frame. He still didn't own a couch, and watched 8 minutes of his own life presented back through the lens of someone who had recognized what it meant before he fully had. When it ended, he sat without moving for a while. Then he opened the composition notebook and wrote, "Revenue up, potential inflection. Don't change anything. Stay on the food," he called David. I watched it. David laughed, the real one, not the managed version. The frequency James hadn't heard in months. Within 48 hours, the Facebook page had gone from 3,000 followers to 31,000. The line the following Monday was longer than the truck's entire street frontage. James ran out of food at 12:37, which had never happened. He stood at the service window looking at 10 people still in line and felt the precise frustration of a craftsman who hasn't made enough of the thing he makes. He recalibrated, doubled the prep volume James filed the motion for joint custody of Zach and Emma through Marcus Johnson at Nashville Legal Aid 6 weeks after the segment aired. Marcus was 31, in his second year at the Family Law Division. He had a folder system that bordered on obsessive and a litigation style built entirely around documentary evidence over emotional appeals. Documents don't require a judge to believe anything. They require a judge to read. Marcus prepared the filing with care. 5 months of self-employment tax filings, revenue increasing in every single reporting period, the signed lease, the food handler's permit, the commercial kitchen rental agreement with First Baptist Church, the truck lease with Pastor Williams, vendor licenses for 3 separate markets, a request that the court appoint a social worker to evaluate James's living situation, James's own request, made proactively. Because a man who invites scrutiny looks different from a man who avoids it. Robert Chambers filed Jennifer's response within 9 days, 39 pages. Chambers had taken the television segment, the Facebook growth, the newspaper article, and constructed an argument that James had prioritized public attention over parental stability. He had taken evidence of James's success and reframed it as evidence of James's unsuitability. He had submitted screenshots of 31,000 followers as documentation of misplaced priorities. He had described Grandpa's Table as an informal street food operation run by a man still living in a single-room studio. Technically accurate, comprehensively dishonest in the way selective facts always are. James sat with the 39 pages for a while after finishing. Then he opened the composition notebook and wrote down everything he needed to get to Marcus Johnson by Friday. It was a long list. He wrote it carefully. He wrote it in blue ink. The courtroom had the quality of rooms where consequential things happen without ceremony. Fluorescent light, wooden furniture worn smooth by years of people in difficult situations leaning on it, a raised bench, a flag, a seal on the wall. Robert Chambers went first. He moved through the argument methodically, the television segment, the 31,000 followers, the 3 affiliates that had picked up the footage. He framed each piece with the same word, exposure. James was seeking exposure. James was building a public platform. James was prioritizing visibility over the grounded private environment that 2 children recovering from a difficult family transition required. It was a coherent argument on its own terms. It just required ignoring everything else. Marcus went second. He laid out the updated documents in a patient, systematic sequence. Revised revenue figures. The second social worker's report. The lease renewal. A breakdown of the Facebook page activity showing that 81% of the content was operational. Daily location updates, menu changes, hours. The remaining 19% was customer posts James had not solicited and could not control. The petitioner has not built a media platform, Marcus said. He has told customers where his truck is parked. The coverage that followed is a consequence of doing the work well enough that other people noticed. The court should not penalize a man for the quality of what he built. Then Marcus requested that a witness be permitted to testify. James didn't know who was coming. Marcus had told him only that there was a witness whose testimony would be relevant and that James should remain in his seat regardless of who came through the door. The courtroom door opened. Jennifer's younger brother walked in, Brian Carter, 32 years old. He had been James's brother-in-law for 12 years. He lived in a townhouse in Brentwood that Jennifer had co-signed for 3 years earlier, her name on the mortgage alongside his, her credit profile making the difference when Brian's own wasn't sufficient for the loan amount. 3 weeks earlier, after receiving a bank notification that Jennifer had withdrawn her name from the co-signing agreement without warning. The same week she learned, Brian had been in contact with James. Brian had sat in his car outside his own house for an hour. Then he had called directory information, asked for Nashville legal aid, and left a message for Marcus Johnson. Brian took the witness stand. He stated his name, his relationship to both parties, Jennifer's younger brother, known to James for the full duration of the marriage and in regular contact with him following the divorce. Marcus asked why he had maintained contact with James after the proceedings began. Brian said he believed what Jennifer had done was wrong and had told James that and had meant it. Marcus asked whether during the period of his contact with James, he had also communicated information about James to Jennifer. The courtroom was quiet. Brian looked at the table in front of him for a moment. Then he looked up. "Yes," he said. He said Jennifer had instructed him to report on James's activities and had made clear that her co-signing of Brian's mortgage would be withdrawn if he refused. He said he had complied for approximately 4 months. He said the information he provided included details about the food truck business, the timing of the custody filing, the identity of the journalist, and the timeline for the broadcast. Marcus asked what had changed. Brian said Jennifer had withdrawn her name from the mortgage co-signing agreement 6 weeks earlier without warning, because Brian had not forwarded information about the television segment quickly enough to be useful. He said he had lost the townhouse in Brentwood. Then he said something that wasn't in any document Marcus had prepared. "She used me like a tool, and when I was no longer useful, she discarded me. That is what she does with people." The words landed in the courtroom and stayed there. Marcus placed 33 printed messages before the clerk. 33 messages across 4 months. Dates, times, content. Each one sent within a short window of a conversation Brian had with James. The clerk distributed copies. Chambers looked at the first page for a long moment. Then he set it down. Judge Sarah Mitchell read the messages. All 33, slowly and completely. When she reached the last page, she placed the stack on the bench and was quiet for a moment that stretched past its actual length. Then she looked at Jennifer's table, not at Chambers, at Jennifer, with the level attention of someone who has formed a view and is now looking at its subject. This court has reviewed documentation showing that the respondent directed a third party to conduct ongoing surveillance of the petitioner during active custody proceedings and used a financial instrument, specifically a mortgage co-signing agreement, as the mechanism of coercion. Chambers began to speak. Judge Mitchell raised one hand. He stopped. "The court does not find this consistent with the best interests of the children." She looked at both tables. Primary custody of Zach and Emma is transferred to the petitioner effective immediately. The respondent retains visitation rights on a schedule this court will determine within 14 days. The respondent is also ordered to complete a parenting coordination assessment before the visitation schedule is finalized. She looked at James directly across the courtroom. The petitioner has demonstrated sustained income, appropriate housing, community support, and consistent engagement with both children throughout these proceedings. The court. James walked out through the hallway and through the main doors onto the courthouse steps. He stood in the October morning and looked at the parking lot. Then he took out his phone and called Zach. 1 ring. 2. His son's voice, carrying the careful neutrality of a 12-year-old who had learned not to show his hand first. "Dad, you're coming home," James said. "Both of you this week." Zach was quiet for 3 seconds that each had their own weight. "Okay." The word came out thinner than his son's normal voice. The thinness of someone trying very hard not to cry in a situation where they weren't sure it was allowed. "Whatever you're feeling right now," James said, "is exactly the right thing to feel." A breath, then the practical voice Zach used when he needed to move past something. "When do we get our stuff?" James almost laughed. Leave it to Zach to arrive at logistics before the moment had finished. "Thursday, I'll be there, tell Emma." He hung up. Marcus came out through the doors and stood beside him. They looked at the parking lot together without speaking for a while. "Thank you," James finally said. Marcus shook his head. "Brian did the work. I asked the right questions." James stood on the steps a moment longer. Then he walked 2 blocks to where the truck was parked, got in, drove to his spot, and opened the service window at 12:20. Big Mike was already at the wall. "Thought you weren't coming." "I'm always coming," James said. "What do you want?" That Thursday morning, James drove to pick up the kids. He arrived at 9:15 with 2 containers of food in the cloth bag over his shoulder. He couldn't not bring food. It was not physically possible for James Mitchell to show up somewhere important without bringing something from the green notebook. Zach opened the door before James reached the top porch step. He was wearing a backpack at maximum capacity and carrying a bag in each hand, and had the look of someone who had packed everything they owned the previous night in a state of barely organized determination. "I have 3 bags," Zach said. "I see 2. There's one more inside. Go get it." Zach disappeared back inside. Emma appeared from around the edge of the doorframe a moment later. Smaller than James had let himself picture in the evenings when picturing her was too difficult. Wearing a yellow dress she'd had since 2nd grade that was now genuinely too short, and that she apparently refused to replace on principle. She looked at her father on the porch. "Daddy, I hid the banana pudding in my drawer." James kept the expression off his face. "I know, Zach told me." Zach wasn't supposed to know. "Nothing stays hidden in a house for long," James said. "Bring the pudding." They loaded the car. The studio apartment was 820 square feet, 1 bedroom, a living area with a kitchen that opened directly onto it. James had furnished it over 5 months: a bed, a kitchen table with 4 chairs, a bookshelf, a couch from a furniture resale place that was genuinely comfortable and only slightly worn at the left armrest. He had moved the 2nd mattress into the bedroom the morning after the hearing. Fresh sheets on both. 2 new pillows sized for children. A small fan on the windowsill because Emma slept better with air moving. He had set the kitchen table with 3 place settings that morning. 3 plates, 3 glasses, 3 forks. Not 4, which would have been aspirational in a particular sad direction. 3, which was exactly what he had. When the children came through the door that afternoon, Zach went immediately to the couch and dropped onto it with the weight of someone who has been holding tension in their body for months and has finally found a surface where they can put it down. Emma walked through every room in the apartment in a systematic loop: bedroom, bathroom, kitchen, living area, with the focused inventory taking of someone who needs to understand a space before she can inhabit it. Then she came back to the kitchen and stood at the counter and looked at the green notebook on the shelf above the stove. "Is that the book from the truck?" "Same book," James said. "The one your great-grandfather wrote." "The one he wrote." She said it again quietly, testing the weight of it. "Can I touch it?" James took it down and handed to her. She held it in both hands, turning it over once, feeling the cloth cover the way children touch things that belong to a world older than their own, carefully, as though the object itself might have memory. "It's really old," she said. "It really is," James agreed. "What's inside?" "Every good thing I know how to make," James said. "And notes from a man who knew more about cooking than anyone I've ever met." Emma opened the cover. The photograph was there, tucked between the cover and the first page. She looked at it. Grandpa Joe, 1987, white apron, flour-dusted hands, smiling the way he always smiled in that photograph, like someone who has understood something essential and is entirely at peace about it. "Who is he?" "He's the man who taught me everything," James said. "His name was Joseph Mitchell. He was my grandfather. And you have the same expression he has in that photograph when you're about to say something that turns out to be right." Emma considered this seriously. "I look like an old man in an apron." "You look like someone who knows something." She handed the book back, satisfied with this answer, and went to claim her side of the bedroom. That evening, James made the smothered chicken. Page 1 of the green notebook. The first thing Grandpa Joe had ever written down. The recipe with the margin note James had read in the dark on David's couch 9 months ago and had been reading ever since. At the bottom of the page, in slightly larger letters, underlined once, "This is the dish for when someone comes home." He started the stock at 4 in the afternoon because it needed time, and he made the base the slow way, 20 minutes over medium heat, stirring without stopping, not rushing the color because you cannot rush the color without ruining the whole foundation of the dish. Grandpa Joe's note at the top of the page: "The color is either right or it isn't. There's no recovering from a mistake. Do it right the first time." Zach came into the kitchen at 4:30 and sat at the table and opened his backpack and pretended to work on homework while actually watching James cook. in the sideways way of a boy who wants to be in the room but doesn't want to make it a thing. James let him be there without commenting. "What's the brown stuff in the pot?" Zach asked eventually. "The base, foundation for the chicken." "How do you make it?" "Onions and spices," James said. "Cooked slowly until they turn the right color." "How do you know when it's the right color?" "Color and smell," James said. "When it smells like something you've never smelled before but recognize immediately, that's when it's done." Zach frowned. "That doesn't make sense." "It will," James said. "Watch." Zach pulled his chair slightly closer to the counter. He didn't say anything else. He just watched. James kept cooking, and the apartment filled slowly with the smell of the base finding its color, and then the meat going in, and then the long, quiet simmer that couldn't be shortened without losing what made it worth making. Emma came in at 5:30 and set the table without being asked. 3 plates, 3 glasses, 3 forks, arranged with a precision that was slightly excessive and somehow exactly right. James served the smothered chicken with biscuits at 6:15. He put the pot on a folded dish towel in the center of the table, family style, the way Grandpa Joe had always served, not portioned out in the kitchen, but set in the middle for people to take what they needed. They sat down. Zach served himself without comment. Emma watched James serve himself and then served herself a portion that was, James noted, without saying anything, significantly larger than what a 9-year-old typically required. She was Grandpa Joe's great-granddaughter in certain unmistakable ways. The first few minutes were quiet in the way good food makes a table quiet, not because there's nothing to say, but because eating has taken priority over saying it, and that priority is correct. James watched his children eat and didn't say anything. He looked at the photograph above the stove. Grandpa Joe in the kitchen on Beale Street, nearly 4 decades gone from this world, still present in the smell of slow-cooked bone broth and spices, and the particular warmth of a kitchen being used the way it was meant to be used. Emma set down her fork and looked at James with the direct and settled gaze she'd had since she was 2 years old. "Daddy, this is the best food in the world." Same words, same voice, different place entirely. Not a porch step, not a visit with a clock running, not a foil container handed through a door at a house he was not permitted to enter. Home. Zach said nothing. He reached for more biscuits. James took that as the higher compliment, the compliment of a person who doesn't need to announce that something is good because they are too busy continuing to eat it. In March, Pastor Williams told James the truck was his. They had the conversation at the prep table in the church kitchen after James's Sunday session. The pastor slid a handwritten bill of sale across the table. $4,200, the price Martha had paid in 2009. James wrote the check at the kitchen table. The pastor held the check and looked at it for a moment without folding it. "Martha would have liked you. She would have argued with you about the spices for 6 months and eventually admitted you were right about the fried catfish." James handed him the pen back. "What would she have said was wrong with my catfish?" "Too much pepper. She was a paprika woman, everything paprika. She wasn't always right about that, but she was right about most things." He put the check in his jacket pocket. James looked at the bill of sale with his name on it. Grandpa's table. The truck he had driven 5 days a week for 7 months. The truck with the photograph beside the service window. The truck that smelled like slow-cooked bone broth and spices every morning before the first customer arrived. Now his. Fully and legally, with no one else's name on it but his own. He folded the bill of sale and put it in his jacket. In April, Zach made the smothered chicken base for the first time. It was a Sunday afternoon. James was prepping for Monday at the church kitchen, and Zach had asked if he could come along. James said yes. Zach sat on a stool at the prep counter and watched James work for 40 minutes and then said, "Can I try it myself?" James set him up with the green notebook open to page 1 and the ingredients arranged in the order they would be needed. He stepped back and let Zach read the recipe and work through it. He didn't interrupt unless Zach was about to make an unrecoverable error. The base came out slightly darker on one side from uneven heat distribution. James waited until the aroma was right. He tasted from a spoon and handed one to Zach. Zach tasted it. The face he made was the face of a 12-year-old waiting to be evaluated. "How is it?" he said. "Good," James said. "Just good, the smell is right. The color is darker on one side. That's a technique issue, not a recipe issue. Technique can be fixed." "How do I fix it?" "Stir the pot more often. Keep the heat even throughout. 10 seconds every time." Grandpa Joe's note. "Mine now," James said. "I figured that one out the hard way when I was about your age." Zach picked up the pen from the counter and wrote it in the margin of page 1. James watched him write careful letters, blue ink, sloping in a way that was particular to this family and nobody else. James didn't say anything about the handwriting. He just watched. The woman in the nice coat came back to the market on a Sunday in October, 1 year and 2 weeks after the hearing. She bought her usual container and stood at the service window while James assembled it, the green notebook lying open on the prep counter beside him. She watched him work for a moment. "About a year," she said, "since the segment." "About that," James said. She looked at the truck, the forest green paint, the gold lettering, the service window, the line forming behind her. "Where do you think you'll be next year?" James handed her the container. He thought about it honestly for a moment, not performing the consideration, actually taking the question seriously. "Same place," he said. "Different people to feed." She nodded slowly, the nod of someone who recognizes a right answer when they hear it. "That's a good answer." "It's Grandpa Joe's answer," James said. "I'm just the one saying it." She took her container to the spot at the edge of the market tables where she always ate, standing with her back to the morning sun, facing the street. And James turned back to the prep counter and opened the green notebook to the next page. The October morning was clear and bright, the Nashville light coming in flat at the angle that belongs to fall, the angle that makes everything look slightly more settled into what it was always going to become. The truck was his. The notebook was open. The children were home. The composition notebook's left page was full, and he had started a second one. Some things cannot be restructured through legal proceedings. Some things don't appear on any balance sheet and don't require documentation to remain in the possession of the person they belong to. They exist in a different register entirely, in the knowledge that lives in the hands, in the margin notes of a notebook touched by the same family across 3 generations, in the understanding passed from a grandfather to a grandson on a Sunday morning in Memphis, and carried forward into a kitchen in Nashville where 2 children were learning, one wooden spoon at a time, what it means to feed people and look them in the eye. She thought she left him with nothing. She left him with everything, because the one thing she never understood, the thing she could not take, because she had never learned to see it, was where he came from. And where you come from, when it's real, when it's the kind of thing written down in blue ink and handed across generations, is something that